time to call the meeting to order and introduce our special guest speaker. So I read an article in the Washington Post last week in which Boston was rated the friendliest and most helpful city in the nation based on civic engagement data from the Census Bureau. Examples included residents joining organizations, donating and volunteering, and neighbors helping each other out. This really hit home since I've devoted so much of my time and energy over the last 20 years to volunteering to help keep our local parks vibrant. I've learned firsthand how public-private partnerships build community and how thoughtful programming makes parks safer. Sufficient public and private funding for year-round programming along the high-level maintenance are critical. The City of Boston has been a terrific partner to the Esplanade Association over the years, designating the Charles River Esplanade as a Boston landmark in 2009 and awarding over $70,000 in Community Preservation Act funding since 2020 toward planting about 200 new trees on the Esplanade. Mayor Wu's commitment to the environment and civic engagement has been clear and consistent. She's prioritized the preservation and expansion of Boston's parks and open spaces and made climate action a top priority for her administration. She's investing in sustainable transportation, such as biking and electric vehicles, and improvements to protect against sea level rise and flooding. I am honored to have first met Michelle at a ribbon cutting for a revitalized space at Titus Sparrow Park in the South End about 9 years ago. My children were much smaller, and Michelle's first was on the way. I sincerely enjoy running into her all around town on a regular basis. We are thrilled to have her here on behalf of the Esplanade, one of the most iconic and well-loved places in Boston. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your leadership, for your support, for your involvement in one of the city's most important jewels. It has been, a little bit of a throwback since my first pregnancy, cutting the ribbon alongside Alexi and many advocates, and to see your leadership in so many institutions. Alexi, thank you so much for all that you do in our city, and to the entire board, to Margot, to everyone who's really wrapped around and stepped up in this moment where parks have become so much more of a daily necessity for our residents, for health, for well-being, for community building, for recreation. I am really grateful to be joined today and every day by colleagues in government who are also fighting for every single resident to have access to the green spaces and infrastructure they deserve. I believe Representative Jay Livingstone is here. Jay is here. I know Senator Will Brownsberger was here or will be here. Thank you also to Senator Sal DiDomenico, City Councilor Kenzie Bach, State Rep Danny Ryan, and I know State Senator Lydia Edwards was here, had to step out, and her team member Eric is here on behalf of the Senator too. So thank you so much to all of our partners at the state and city and federal level. We know that there's a big event coming up in a couple days in Boston. My days have been full of the briefings and safety preparations and all that's happening for our very important marathon, also marking an important commemoration this year. So thank you so much to Courtney, who is not only Volunteer of the Year, but team captain for the Esplanade Association's marathon team. We wish you well, and we'll be cheering you on all along the way. What I wanted to share with you today, just a little bit of our vision of where Boston is headed, and I think I was going to come from a different angle on the study. I think shockingly surprising statistic that Boston is one of the friendliest cities in the country. As a Midwesterner who grew up in Chicago, came here, that wasn't my experience. It took a while to get used to Boston's nature of friendliness. The type of friendliness that we exhibit is not immediately apparent sometimes at first blush or on the T or other spaces. But it is true that when you measure it by how much people are willing to get involved on behalf of their neighbors, how much people are willing to invest their own time and resources into just making their part of the city that they love and claim and feel connected to so much. There is no other city in the country that has that level of engagement and pride. We want to translate that into really making sure that Boston is positioned in this moment, coming out of a very difficult time, for what cities are now all grappling with headed into the future. The very existence and purpose of cities is under a microscope right now. And Boston has been experiencing, in some ways, some national attention for being on the opposite trend of many other large cities in some very notable ways. We've been called out, for example, for being basically the safest major city in the country. Our public safety numbers and statistics when it comes to public safety incidents, despite what you might see from the media rushing to different incidents, data compared to other cities, we are actually on a downward trend for incidents that are happening in the city, which is the opposite of many other places that are very similar to us in terms of weather or size, population, and all of that. And it comes back to all of the many ways in which we have invested in infrastructure, both the built environment of connectivity and transportation access. We're still working on the T, but we will get there with our new general manager. But also understanding how important the infrastructure of social services, of parks, of our school system is to connecting everything together. Our vision is for Boston to be a green and growing city. Our population has been going up over the last several census counts. We want to continue that, and our aim is to be building the infrastructure to sustain our peak population, which we had reached several decades ago of 800,000 residents. We haven't been there in some time, but we've been steadily climbing back. And what will it mean to focus on building a city based on a target population rather than just measuring numbers of units or square footage? It forces us, I believe, to look at everything that people need in our city. The housing, of course, that we are working hard to generate and to create and to fund and to get off the sidelines from approved to permitted to in the ground. But it also means taking a hard look at how our neighborhoods are connected to each other. The green spaces that are the common connections and destinations that stitch together each of our very unique neighborhoods and communities that have so much character and history. We want to be a city where every single young person steps into a commitment of Boston being first for families anywhere around the country. Again, that means excellent schools, of course. That means supports and resources through our housing system and everything else that the city is doing. But we're also challenging our city to think about this from a whole child perspective. We put forward a commitment to think about 5 areas that every young person growing up in the city of Boston will be guaranteed to have access to. 1, that you'll learn to swim. 2, you'll know how to ride a bike. 3, you will have access to science and arts. 4, you'll play youth sports. 5, you will know and have experience what it means to grow something outside. Be involved and have your hands in the dirt in some ways through our outdoor learning classrooms or as a volunteer with one of our many beautiful green spaces. And so the work of knitting together all of the energy of this city, all the resources and the infrastructure, from human capital, the physical, built environment, to all the anchor institutions that we have, it really is most visible in organizations like this, where people are here volunteering because of your love for this community, because of your commitment to the benefits and the joy and the vitality that parks bring us, and that the Esplanade in particular is drawing people to our city and feeling a sense of connection in ways that can help us become that national leader. For me, it's a very important space personally. I'm not, as you heard, I'm too friendly to have been born in Boston. I grew up in the Midwest, and but we're introducing this at every level. I grew up in the Midwest, was born in Chicago, and came out to this area for school. And when I was at Harvard, it was my weekly pilgrimage over to Chinatown that kept me rooted in a sense of connection to my family's culture and community and identity, and being able to deposit one of those little round T tokens into the slot back then and hop on the red line, come across the sparkling Charles River and see the Esplanade and the skyline behind. That was when I felt the sense of connection and belonging to a beautiful community that I wanted to someday be a part of. And so many years later, I am blessed and honored to have a chance to see the great work happening in every single part of our city, in our various issues that we're tackling in City Hall, but especially in the work that's happening on the ground, in our parks, in our neighborhoods, and block by block in our communities. So thank you so much for tackling this with such a vision of what's possible, but also with such strong partnership for the city. We are very proud to be partnering with the Esplanade Association on our efforts to invest in green infrastructure through trees and making sure that the best green technology that we have to reduce emissions, bring temperatures down, bring a sense of joy and community, our urban tree canopy, that is a big focus in diversifying, maintaining, and protecting that. We're proud to be looking at details as small as the electrical boxes, right, and making every spot a possibility for community art and for artists and a sense of curiosity and joy being sparked from looking at the canvases that are there in the community and working together with you all to engage artists in that work. We have much ahead of us in really making sure that Boston is positioned in this moment to be that city that's first for families, green and growing, but through the work that you all have already made possible, through the leadership that you show every day, and through the tangible examples of what partnerships like this can deliver for the city of Boston, I have full faith and excitement in what's ahead for all of us. So thank you so much for having me tonight. Thank you for all of your work and leadership.